Authorities in nearby Vermont across the border are increasing police presence, telling residents to remain alert as the dragnet continues. Vermont Governor Peter Shumlin joins me now by phone. Governor, what are authorities telling you about the leads that have led to this intense push search in the woods just where Mr. Parker and his family live?
Well, Andre, Governor Cuomo on his side of the lake, and obviously we on our side of the lake, are just pursuing any legitimate leads that law enforcement feels might lead us to getting these two dangerous guys locked up and behind bars where they belong. So we're throwing all of our resources at it, both in New York and Vermont, and hoping that we get these guys quickly before they harm anybody.
Is there any indication that they could have had access to a boat or gotten across the lake?
There's no indication of that. We have no evidence of that. What we do know is that the only intention that they expressed based upon good sources is that they thought if they headed to Vermont, it would be cooler, that New York was going to be hot with police presence, and it would be a better place to hide out until things cooled off. So obviously we're taking that seriously, and we've enhanced our marine presence on Lake Champlain. We're now obviously doing surveillance in remote areas of Vermont, and camps and cabins. We're doing everything we can to find these guys.
Governor, they had a good head start, given that they were sighted, according to a couple of reports, around midnight. They weren't discovered missing until that bed check at 5:30 Saturday morning. So with that kind of head start, even if they were on foot, couldn't they be in Canada by now?
Well, Canada would be a pretty tough bet for them. That Canadian border is very well covered with surveillance equipment, cameras, and other infrared systems that probably they're seeing. These two are not only dangerous, they're smart. And you can see the breakout that they managed to conspire together. Obviously, they're manipulative, they're incredibly bright, and if they head for the Canadian border, I think we'd have them by now.
And again, this kind of intensive search, presumably they shared their plot with others, either Joyce Mitchell or other inmates?
I can't comment on our sources. Obviously, we don't want to do anything to compromise hunting these two down and apprehending them. What I can tell you is that, there's a reason for both Governor Cuomo to be taking all of the actions he's taking, and, I spent a fair amount of time with him yesterday. He's obviously totally focused on this. I'm obviously totally focused on it as governors. Our biggest responsibility is to keep our citizens safe. So this is kind of a nightmare for all of us, as you can imagine. You just heard from a nice resident up in New York State what it means to him and his family. There are a lot of people that are helping us out. My own view is that, so often in these situations, it is an alert citizen that sees something unusual, that sees a canoe that somehow shouldn't be at that part of the, stranded on that part of the lake or at that part of the beach, or something going up on in a cabin up in the woods that often leads to the apprehension of criminals like this. But these guys are scary. They're killers. They've got no moral core. We don't want to panic. We're trying to use good common sense, but we got to find them.
And what we're all fascinated by is how they could have, particularly one of them, given their records, how a prison worker could have, according to law enforcement officials or other sources, I should say, close to the investigation who've talked to NBC News, how they could have co-opted a prison worker. How unusual is that, if that is in fact what happened, to help them with their plot? Well,
obviously it's an extraordinarily unusual story, and it's the kind of stuff movies are made of. But what Governor Cuomo and I are focused on is putting all of our resources into catching these guys and getting them back behind bars before they hurt anybody. And then we'll have plenty of time after this is all over. I know the New York State folks will be trying to figure out very carefully what went wrong and how do you avoid this kind of breakout in the future. Obviously, I mean, this is not a nice team of guys you want on the run.
And the fact that there was no, we're told, no magnetometers, that packages could go in and out of that prison, and no outside surveillance cameras.
Well, all I can tell you is I don't, as you know, I'm a neighboring state. My focus is to get it right in Vermont, and we are going to try to do everything we can to cover our end of this to make sure that if they're here, we find them.
Governor Shumlin, thank you very much for calling us from Vermont. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much.